All right, we are going to get started. I will keep letting people in if you're waiting for some of your team members to get on. But we do want to make the most of the 2 hours because this is such an important training. So we have Casey and Robin hosting with NAMI today. They have been a longtime partner of ours and really provide such tremendous support services. This has been a training we have dreamed of for a long time. And as a company, I know we've had a lot of individual conversations, but a huge goal of ours this year is to really take our training programs to the next level and provide a lot more professional development opportunities, time to reflect as leaders, and really make space for ourselves, for our teams, for each other, of how we can best show up, how we can be the best leaders and provide the best work environments for our team. So thank you all so much for being here. It is truly so exciting and such a dream come true to have a company with so many managers. We now are on the West Coast, the East Coast, and having everyone together is just such a gift. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Casey and Robin. Just kick it off.
Thank you. Good morning and afternoon, everybody. For those of you on the West Coast, if you end up really liking Robin and I, we are attempting to go to the West Coast more often. So feel free to bring us out in person. We were able to swoon Hyatt and we're on our way to California next week for training as well. So anyway, I'm a Cali girl. So anytime you West Coast folks need me, you just let me know. I'm a resource to you. Anyway, we are so excited to be here with you guys today. We have a lot to cover in 2 hours and we're going to do our best to do it all. And we have a lot of different types of activities. This is not just lecture-based. There's a lot of applicable strategies that we're going to walk through and you guys are going to do. We do a lot of awareness building and you'll have some time for breakouts for small discussion as well. So I encourage you guys, if you're in a safe space and you're comfortable, that you turn your videos on because you will have intimate conversations as well. If you're comfortable doing that in the breakouts instead of the big group, that totally works too. Because we're going to talk a lot around like some of our deeper values and moral systems, which ends up being foundational to management and leadership. So let me share my screen because we'll do a little introduction of Robin and I. But you guys are here to do inspired leadership training. You are an inspiration. I can't imagine your own unique experiences through these last 2 years and whatever has come before those 2 years that has also come into play and been impacted and it continues to change, right? And so this chronic state of stress and transition will always kind of leave you either having to put so much work into wellness or just making you feel unsteady. So please know that the resources and tools that Robin and I will leave you with today are also just applicable to wellness, not just leadership. They are the same thing. And then if there's any further support that you need, of course, know that we're always here for you. So let me just start off before I talk anymore, because I could talk the whole 2 hours. Let me tell you who I am. So I'm Casey Franco. I'm the Chief Education Officer with NAMI Chicago. So I oversee all of our internal and external training for the city of Chicago. And with COVID, we've been able to extend our reach national, which is amazing. And we do all type of training for all type of audience, anything from trauma to self-care to compassion fatigue to youth, focused suicide stuff, to caregiver training for audiences such as faith-based community organizations, corporations, schools. We lead mental health and wellness training for first response in the city of Chicago as well. Robin?
Hi, everyone. First of all, I have to say thank you all for being here, and y'all are very near and dear to my heart. I spent 15 years of F&B leadership and management in Chicagoland area. So I can definitely relate to what you guys do on a daily basis. But nonetheless, I'm the wellness coordinator for NAMI Chicago. I provide all the non-clinical support that the organization needs internally and externally. So we talk a lot about breath, mindfulness, movement, nutrition, sleep hygiene, all the good things that we're responsible to do for ourselves, to take care of ourselves and our wellness. I work a lot on the law enforcement side, supporting the Chicago Police Department, and then partnering arm in arm with Casey and our kind of roadshow that we do together in training throughout the city and Greaterland.
Awesome, thank you. So for anybody who's new to NAMI Chicago, let me tell you a little bit about us. But really, like, our vision is a world that just embraces mental health and mental illness, that we don't have to work so hard at breaking barriers down and making access to care available, that it's just welcomed. That's our vision. And we do that through a lot of different ways. But first, we're an advocacy organization. So we're always advocating for mental health priority in every format, whether it's in the workplace, in the state level, local level, within schools, mental health on campus. And so we're big in that space. Some of the other things we do are free and confidential support groups. These are virtual right now. We have ones for individuals who are either experiencing mental health symptoms or have mental health conditions. We have support groups for families as well, or loved ones who are still trying to figure out how to support somebody who might be struggling with mental health or has a mental health condition, wants to learn more about it. We have free education as well, that are 4 to 6 week workshops on how to either live in recovery of mental health or how to support a loved one with mental health as well. We also train just like this. We tend to be able to reach around 20,000, if not more, people a year, which has been amazing. And I can't wait to see our numbers this year because, again, COVID, one of the opportunities that COVID has introduced to us is that reach. And then we also run a helpline. So our helpline is on here and it's available national. So if you ever need something like this, please take this number down. It's 833-NAMI-CHI. We're Monday through Friday, Central Time, 9 to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5. Of course, you guys have resources as well. But just so you know, our helpline is really 2 things. It's a listening ear and it's getting connected to the right mental health resources. So you have questions about mental health, you have questions about a loved one, you have questions about the workplace, you need some psychoeducation, maybe you're looking for a therapist, maybe you're looking for none of that and you just want to have a conversation or you need to talk about something, we got you. There will never be a time you call us and we're like, this isn't a NAMI thing. We'll make sure you get connected. Our goal is really that people have somebody they can connect with around mental health and wellness and that nobody falls through the cracks. So even if this doesn't pertain to you, if you have a loved one that you think could utilize this helpline, please feel free to pass along, and you can always learn more about us at namichicago.org as well. We're a free and confidential helpline as well. Pretty much my entire family has used this, including myself. Our chief wellness officer runs it and he's amazing. So this is a resource for you all, of course. Okay, not going to spend too much time here on NAMI because you guys can always go to the website. You can, of course, connect with Robin and I, and we can tell you more about that. But today is all about you all. So here are your learning objectives for today. Now, when you read these, I want you guys to just be as open as possible to some of these concepts because they're pretty new. Although they've been foundational to leadership, and you'll start to realize that as either you've realized it already or you'll start to realize that as you do these activities, how much of you is in leadership. But talking about trust and purpose and values is a little bit of a deeper concepts, and they can be kind of spiritual and philosophical. So I encourage you guys to lean in and be as present as possible. It's not easy to talk about these terms, and we're going to think about mentors that have influenced us as well. So I encourage you 3 things. Be as present as possible. It's very easy to multitask in a virtual world. I know we all have our cell phones right next to us. Super unhelpful. I'm going to put mine to the side because it's such a distraction, or you can go on your email. But somebody very important said to me one day is that multitasking is the most ineffective way to work because you can only be present on one thing at a time. That's what your brain does. So be present if you can. And again, if there are terms you learned today where you're like, I have no idea what that means, or I'm kind of interested in what they're talking about when they talk about mindfulness in the workplace, be curious. Like, you are never going to walk out of a 2-hour training being an expert in anything, right? That I don't think that's a thing. I definitely don't. So you're going to have to do more work on the back end of this. Like, what else do you need to know? What are you curious about? What more do you need to research, look up, Google, have conversations about, reach out to us about as well. Okay. So I encourage that as well. So these are yours. You're going to develop and create a space to learn about what purpose looks like in the leadership space, why trust is so important, and what happens when distrust occurs. We're going to identify the values that resonate with you the most, but connect them to your behavior every day. They're not going to be out there in the ether. We're going to see how do they actually influence your behavior in every interaction you have. And then you have that activity packet that we got for you guys, or that we created for you. That will kind of be like your roadmap. We want you to follow along. We'll give you time to fill those out, but that's your tool to take away and to add to as well. Okay. There won't be enough time to do this in like a very robust way. So you'll take notes, and then you'll want to think about what to go back to and what else you need to know. These tools can be used in applying to collaboration with coworkers, communicating expectations, managing, employees, communicating roles and responsibilities, providing feedback. Like, all of this is around setting the tone and having these conversations. So just keep that in mind of like, how can these apply to when I have to give feedback to a coworker? Or how does this apply in conflict resolution? Because those are all separate trainings, right? But they can still apply. So here are your group norms and agreements for today. I already talked about being present. Make space, take space means like if you can, which is, I know, difficult in a smacked out of the middle of a workday, but after this training, maybe you could give yourself 1 minute or 10 minutes to get up, do a quick stretch, walk around, just let yourself transition out of this space into another. That's the best thing we can do for our like actual nervous system, is give ourselves a quick minute of just like not. And then going into the next thing will just create better clarity going into your next task. So I encourage you guys to make space if you can. If you're going to add to discussion, which we hope you do, and you're going to be in the chat, please speak from your own perspective. You guys are the experts in your experience, so we want to hear from you. But no generalizations, please. And then whatever is talked about, especially in your small groups, please keep it there. Please make sure that people feel safe enough to share, and that they can trust you in their groups to keep whatever they do share in that space. So those are your Vegas rules. And if you feel comfortable, what no fixing means is like, say whatever is on your mind. No need to filter yourself, although I understand too that every workplace is different. We are lucky to exist in a workplace where we have zero filter. So if you feel comfortable, please do. So I'm going to start here around the foundations of wellness, and talk just a little bit about all the different things that are influencing us. And then we're going to have Robin sort of ground us into the space as we really kick off into the content. So I just like to share, we like to set the tone here because there's not a lot of shared language around wellness. And if you think about like how you would define mental health, many people would have different definitions. And for the most part, it might be something like, it's the way that you think and feel, but there's so much more to it than that. And I think you guys feel that, right? That there has been so much impact. So we start really with the lens of equity. And we say this because without equitable access to any of this, it's very difficult to be well. And so everything that we do, we have to be looking through the lens of equity, because, and this is really important as leadership, because you do need to meet your colleagues, your employees, your family where they're at through that lens of equity. It's really important. So as we move through equity, you have these 4 other pieces that significantly impact the foundation of our mental health and wellness. The first is being home. So this is everything from, does your home feel safe? Is it somewhere you want to be? Are there people in the home you want to spend time with, right? At the end of the day, are you sitting on the couch with your partner that you actually want to sit next to? Is your house chaotic? Is it isolating? Is it aesthetically pleasing, right? Is there light? Is there greenery? Are there windows? Can you go outside? Like all of that significantly impacts your mental health. Is it financially stable? Is it in a safe place, right? Can you walk outside and feel safe? So all of these things are going to impact your wellness because home is health, okay? Home is healthcare. Then you move into purpose. So these are the things that fill you up and give you meaning every single day. Purpose ended up being one of the most important pieces during these past 2 years. So many people lost their sense of purpose during COVID, whether it was work shifts that changed or families they lost, or just the whole transition of it all, trauma, the mental health they experienced. So many people lost sight of the things that brought them joy every single day. Right? And that will impact your mental health. So purpose, having things that fill you up every day, which could be anything from connection to work, to hobbies, to smiling and laughing, to play, all of those are significant to our wellness. And when that gets shaken up, it's going to impact how we feel. The next circle here is community, and it's by far the most important. And this is why I'm so happy that you guys are all on here, because community, and I want everybody to like really resonate this, the quality of your relationships will dictate the quality of your life. And you can be the one that leads that initiative in everything that you do. When people got sick during COVID, when people are experiencing trauma, take COVID out of it, any other life dynamics that are happening, a lot of the times we're not necessarily turning to our medical professionals. Maybe sometimes, and maybe they follow up with us once a month, but how we're getting through it day to day to day are our relationships in our close circle, right? So though that community is so important, these are people who fill us up, give us hope, provide us meaning, and hopefully a non-judgmental space. Now, you will always have people in your life that are not that, and that may deplete you. So this is about how do you balance and how do you utilize relationships to fill you up so that you can also meet the need of the relationships that deplete you. Okay, so community is very important to healing. And then health, right? So your ability to access good healthcare, good mental health care, healthcare that's responsive. For any of you who've ever been in the medical system, or the mental health system, know that you have to do a lot of advocacy for yourself to get the right care. And it's exhausting when you don't already feel well. So anytime these circles feel like they're going well, not going so well, or they're significantly impacted, just check in with yourself, right? Because you do deserve to feel some type of way when these get shaky. And most of these shake all the time. So now that we have sort of this shared understanding, we're just going to lay the foundation that we're going to start with building awareness into yourself and your own sort of spectrum of wellness. Because in order to lead others and be able to show up for others and yourself, you really have to understand where you're at all times. And that takes a significant amount of intention. So I say that because it can feel like you have to be thinking about being intentional all the time. And you do. And then it starts to become second nature once you really get it down. So we're going to teach you some of those tools of how do you get really intentional about everything you do through that awareness building. So before we start into that content, I'm going to pass it to Robin, who is going to walk you through one of the first pages in your activity book.
Thank you, Casey. So if you do have your activity packet, it's page 3. That we're going to work on. But if you don't have it, also okay, grab a sheet of paper or type it in your phone, even though Casey said put your phones aside. More so of a note taking than anything else. If a computer screen works better for you, whatever it is, to kind of journal down thoughts. We're going to dig into thinking about your current leadership style. So as you start to lean in and very granularly, think about the last shift that you worked, and maybe that was this morning, or maybe that was yesterday evening, whatever it is, in very specific but very general questions. What's working? what's working in my current leadership style, and jot down whatever that answer is. I'll give you a couple beats to do that, but start to really dig into you personally. Maybe it's relationships. Maybe it's communication. What's really working? It's kind of the easy one out of these two, but what's not? Your second question is what's not working? Where do you hit a little bit of a barricade? Where do you struggle? Where do you find the most stress comes from? So we have what's working, we have what's not working. Now, what should I do more of? In my leadership style currently, maybe you build off of that what's working. So what should I do more of? And to counter that, what should I do less of? What might be sucking up some of your time? What might be turning you a little bit sideways in your day when you're feeling really good? Kind of shaking the snow globe, I like to say, where you feel a little less in control. Last one, where do I find gratitude? We as leaders are driven by our presence to inspire those around us and those that we lead, not only inspire, but educate and lead in growth patterns. So where do you find gratitude? Because if we're not finding gratitude, we're constantly in this whirlwind of not being happy in our leadership role. So a little bit of a toughie, but where do I find gratitude? This is just a foundation for you to reflect on currently where you feel you are, and maybe not even thinking about these questions ever. You hit the floor running every single day you walk into the job, and there isn't a lot of time to reflect. When you're done with your shift, you're exhausted, and then it's like, boom, I got to go home. I have to do all the other things of life and get back into it, whether it's the next day or the next time you're on. So there's not a lot of time for this. So if you have these simple questions in your mind that you can reflect on and grow off of as you begin to work through your leadership development, utilize your answers. They might change. If that one that's always throwing you a little bit sideways of what's not working, and you continue to ask yourself that question and it continues to be the same answer, we have to change. So that's where that development comes in, is being aware, number one, being connected to our thoughts, and then having intention to change and to make a difference to improve ourselves as leaders and to assist ourselves in our growth. And throw it back to Casey.
Thank you, Robin. And what I want to say too is just what you'll learn today can be weaved into different leadership styles. So this isn't about a big overhaul. It's about micro changes. So be curious about these concepts and these changes because they are effective. And we don't want you to come out of this being like, okay, I need to like figure out a whole new way of leading. It's not, it's to like dose these different changes in and see how they work for you. So we start here with the understanding that growing from setbacks, adding to our leadership toolbox, being curious about what more we need to know to be an effective leader is more important than ever, right? Because we are seeing still a lot of crisis, a lot of trauma, a lot of staff turnover. And this is the fact is, right, is that you, your team, your family, those you mentor, and your community will continue to be exposed to trauma and adversity every single day, right? Even in the face of COVID, there's still other adversities that are happening every day. So your role as a leader in this context is so critical to healing of your workforce and your home base. Whether it be times where you're remote or hybrid or in person, everybody needs to be able to feel safe, both physically and psychologically. If they don't, you will not have teams that thrive. They're directly connected. So if we can figure out a way to capitalize on connection, you'll start to see healing. The only place healing happens is in connection. Now, of course, there are times where you need to take space for yourself and, and just block out the world. But the real healing of trauma, the real healing of chronic stress, toxic stress is through connection, through positive connection. Okay. So I want to just talk to you guys a little bit about this. Training is not necessarily about trauma, but it's such a factor into the current times that it's good to just have a baseline understanding of how each person's experience could feel very different. And so these are the 3 E's of trauma. And there's a really, Bruce Perry, who's one of the leading trauma experts and specialists, is a very interesting resource if you ever are more interested. Okay, hello, automatic lights. Thank you. That's probably going to happen 3 more times. Bruce Perry, if you're interested in learning more about trauma and healing, leads that research. So feel free if you like this stuff. But the 3 E's of trauma basically describe that everybody is going to walk into a context with so many different factors. Okay, so for example, if Robin and I are walking into work on the same day at the same time, I could be walking in with significant interpersonal conflict, grieving a parent that is unwell, not sleeping well, and starting to experience anxiety. I may be walking into my context at that moment, at that, that day. Robin could be side by side coming into a totally different context. Maybe she's sleeping quite well. She's feeling positive that day. She just connected with somebody right before that brought her some like silliness and fun. And here we walk into the same context in very different ways, which means our experience of that context is going to be totally different, right? So maybe I experienced the workplace that day is very stressful. I'm chaotic. I can't focus. I'm short with people. And meanwhile, she's very patient. Maybe she inspires somebody, right? And we come out of that day in a very different effect. Maybe I'm even more overwhelmed when I go home. So then I go home to my family and I'm having more conflict because I don't feel centered. She's going home. Perhaps she doesn't have anybody at home that day, and she's able to just kind of relax and process out her day. So every single person's experience is just so different, and the context of that changes. So I say that to like really push the point that your people are all experiencing different things at different times, including yourself. There's never going to be a time where we're like, there was a big thing we used to say, I feel like at the start of COVID, which was like, we all have shared experience. And it was like, there was a shared pandemic. The experience was very different, right? And I think it's just really important to remember, because there is no settling in right now. It's not like we've been like, okay, now we're good. Like that used to be something we would talk about, right? In the first couple of months, like when this is over, it's going to be this way, and then, a year in, okay, when this is over, it's going to be this way. No, new world, new you, new me. And the quicker we can kind of get on that bandwagon, the better. However, everybody's experience has also created a significant amount of wisdom of what they've learned, right? Whether it's been like, okay, this is no longer the work I want to do, right? I mean, there's not like the fact that so many people, millions of people left their jobs wasn't like by happenstance. So many people lost purpose in their work and wanted to find something more purposeful. So perhaps the wisdom was there, or learn that they don't want to take time on people who cause them stress, or whatever it was. People had a lot of wisdom from that as well. It may be an interesting time as we kind of go through these activities, is what could you bring into your group to foster some understanding of what experiences people have had. So we're going to play this short video where Bruce kind of talks about the sort of what happens after going through traumatic experiences. And here we go.
If you take...
That was my fault, sorry.
If you take nothing else away from this experience, this conversation, I think what you and I want people to know from this book is that no matter what happened to you, it's not too late. You do have a chance to rewrite the script. And you talk about something called post-traumatic wisdom, using all of these things, experiences, good and bad in your life, to allow you to have post-traumatic wisdom instead of stress about it. What does that mean?
Well, basically, that's referring to the experience where you've been able to kind of get through adversity and you're now at a safer place.
Oh no. What happened?
If you take nothing else away from post-traumatic wisdom instead of stress about it, what does that mean?
Well, basically, that's referring to the experience where you've been able to kind of get through adversity and you're now at a safer place in your life, and you can look back and reflect and take what you've learned and use that to see the world differently. You use your pain and transform it to power and help other people. I think of the most transformative people I've ever known, every single one of them had personal pain and traumatic experience that was a core element of who they became. And it didn't crush them. They learned how to carry the burden in a way. It's not like it goes away. It's not like you're free of distress or depression or anxiety. It's just that it didn't destroy them. And it gives, those people tend to have tremendous empathy for others who are struggling. And they also tend to have wisdom. They're wise about the ability to live with pain and not have so much fear from pain. It's not like you're going back and undoing. You're moving forward. I mean, that's the thing. That's the nature of the human biological system. We always are moving forward. We're changing. We may think the same, look the same, but we're always changing forward.
So with that, I just want you guys to be able to reflect a little bit on, are there times where you can weave your story or your experience into your interactions with your team? Because that alone, not only will you be able to share some of the pain that maybe you guys went through that are still going through, but that alone, that connection of shared experience, or similar experiences, is very powerful and will continue to help your workforce work together. There's still quite a bit of stigma around talking about personal stuff or personal experience at work. And the thing is, it's counterintuitive to rapport building which is, again, foundational to leadership. So in order to be a really, really connected leader, there has to be rapport, and not just surface level rapport, but deep rapport. And in order to build that deep rapport, you have to be able to connect in that deeper way. And we have the opportunity from experience of COVID to be able to connect on that deeper way. So it's maybe a little bit of a shift for some of you who might not get into that space a lot, but the outcomes are very powerful. And when you have a massive, massive percentage of workforce feeling isolated, it's not because they're home by themselves. The isolation is actually disconnection. So in order to really be able to foster that connection, that deeper rapport, you have to learn a little bit more about ourselves. So if you go to page 4 of your activity booklet, we're going to do just that. The journey of building awareness for yourself is not something that you do once and then never have to look back at it again. Okay. In order to continue to understand how to communicate, how to approach, how to take care of ourselves, it's an ongoing cycle. There's never a time in our lives where we achieve optimal joy or optimal resilience. One of the experiences of human nature is human suffering. And so we can always work towards feeling our best, but we're never going to be a space where we're always there. The more we can build awareness, the more we can create tools. And that way, when things come our way or are thrown our way, we have a quicker bounce back than maybe before. So an event that happens now without any tools might take me months to come back from. An event that happens 6 months from now when I've built a really solid awareness may take me 2 weeks to bounce back from. That's the goal, is the quicker bounce back. Okay, so here you go. Here's your first awareness. In your green, I want you guys to list a couple words that describe you when you're feeling good, when you're feeling optimal joy. Okay, and people may have never asked you that before, because most people don't say, like, what do you look like when you're happy? Usually we talk about when we don't feel good. So that might take a second, but what do you look like when you feel good, when you feel happy? So for example, and I'll ask Robin in a second to share her, my green would be energetic, no anxiety, probably like well rested. If my partner's not snoring. Patient, and probably like very playful. That's my green. What about you, Robin?
My green is also energetic, awake, I would say, rather than a little lethargic, and really just wanting to surround myself with people. I'm out in the field every day, and I love surrounding myself with people, but when I get a little sideways, it's not the case. So when I'm in my green, definitely like working with all the people around me, feel very energetic, happy.
Thank you. Knowing your green is so important, you guys, okay? And continue to build in your green. 2 weeks from now, when you're like, I feel so good today, try to get the words of what you are looking like and experiencing it, and add to this. So a lot of us don't know what we feel like in green. And so it's pretty hard to get there if we don't know what it looks like. So take a second to finish that. And if you would like, and we would love to see your answers, please pop some of your green words into the chat so we can just take a look. Okay. Once you guys are finished with your greens, here you go. I love these. So playful. Now I want to know how you guys are playful. I know, isn't that so interesting? We're so much more playful when I feel like when I'm in red, I'm like, I was about to say something that could have been like homicidal thought. That's not helpful in this train. Okay, in yellow, thank you guys. Wow, Lindsay, that's quite the word. Equanimous. I may have butchered that. I don't know. That's a new one for me. All right, love it. Keep them coming. In your yellow, I want you guys to put a couple words that describe you when you start to feel a little sideways. Okay, when you start to not feel like that optimal joy, you're not like awful, you're just kind of in this like in the middle space. What do you look like? And after you fill your yellow out, put that in the chat too. So for example, my yellow is, I can start to feel like a little bit of anxiety bubbling up. Mine's not very emotional. It's more physical for me. I'll start to feel it in my stomach, a little bit in my breathing. I start to feel kind of like, I call it chaotic. So like my brain is like racing and I have like 1,000 things I want to do and can't stay focused, and I'm not as patient. What about you, Robin?
I tend to be a little bit scatterbrained, whereas like constantly on the go and very organized in my green. I tend to get a little bit out of sync. So start to miss some things. Maybe miss meetings, appointments, energy level starts to dip a little bit, and I start to become more reserved.
Yeah, these are so good, you guys. Scattered is scattered. Yeah, I think I call it chaotic, but yeah, scattered's like the same thing. Sleep hygiene. Yeah, these are so great. Ooh, tightness in muscles. Yes.
Yeah.
Robin loves that.
Very physical person, everyone. You'll learn later.
Last but not least, you're red. Okay, so what are some words that, yeah, so much anxiety in the gut. What are some words, and I start to mumble in French to myself. I love that. These are great for like any of your team members that are on this too. Like take note of that, right? Like if they start to do that in French, you need to be like, should I check in with them? In your red, what are some things that are like, you are not well, right? You need to, something's going on. You feel like you want to tap out of the day or whatever it is. What do you look like? And you can pop those in the chat too. For me, it would be like total anxiety. How about like very shortness of breath, emotional. I am definitely not a very emotional person. All of a sudden I'll have like, either I'll be teary or I'll be very like, not explosive, but combative, very combative. What about you, Robin?
Very vivid to me. I experienced it last Friday, but just low all around, almost lethargic, zero energy. Don't want to communicate with anyone. Just don't want to do anything but sleep. Can't think, can't be organized.
Yeah. So these are so interesting. And I love that you guys are sharing, and we're going to continue to work through this activity, but just keep in mind as we go into this like next section of this, what would it be like to know your people's red, yellow, and green, right? So if you're feeling impatient when you're in red, or you're pacing, or you have stomach stuff, what would it be like to know your coworker's red, right? If I knew that Robin's red was not talking, was low, and was like whatever, isolating, I would be able to then be like, hey, how can I support you? What do you need? Or even have that conversation. There is significant power in this activity. And you'll start to see that as I get to this next section. So as you work your way down, I want you to, we'll go up to the top of that page, but first I want you to go back into how I prefer to communicate with others. This is really interesting. I want you guys to put a couple words that describe how you communicate and how you receive communication in these different circles. So you can just literally put like R, colon, Y, colon, and just think a little bit about how you communicate. So for example, when I'm in red, if my supervisor comes to me and she asks me to do something, the first thought in my head is like, do it yourself. Because I'm just like combative in general. That's like my parents were huge hippies, and they used to always say to me, question authority. That was like their main theme in my life, was like question authority. And so it now it's been an awful narrative for so many different reasons, but that's my first thought, is like, go do it yourself. Or like, why are you asking me to do it? If I'm in green, I'm like, got you, right? Or if I'm in green, I'm communicating to my team or my family, like in a very like connected way, like how can we do this? Like, you're doing such a good job, versus I'm in red and I'm not. I'm impatient. I'm irritable. I don't feel like engaging in that conversation. I'm defensive, right? So what is your communicating in these different spaces? How do you communicate, Robin, in yellow? That's kind of a tricky one.
Just very short, precise, not happy, just very kind of flatlined. I'm getting my point across, I'm getting the job done, but there's not a lot of detail or heart that really goes into it.
I find this communication space to be a game changer in the workplace, because a lot of the time your communication will be the first thing that flags you. Like, you'll be in red and you'll be snappy with somebody and you'll be like, what's going on with me? Or you'll start to like ruminate on somebody's interaction. It's a good flag, but also what it's, yeah, totally, Brett. It's starting from a place to know 100% that's me. The other interesting thing is that like, we've done this exercise with my team. And so what it allows me to do is have conversations that hold my employees accountable, but also feel connected, and they can do the same thing. One of my employees, her red is a little bit of burnout, is this phrase she uses, which is, I got it. And it's like, you wouldn't think that that would be her burnout phrase, but it is. She'll be like, I got it, I got it, I got it. And all of a sudden I'll say to her, you don't, like, let's have this conversation because you told me that that's your red phrase, right? And you don't got it. So like, what do you need? And she'll slow down and I can hold her accountable and also provide that connection. It's very powerful in making sure that my team stays well, efficient, at good work quality. So it's actually in my benefit to really know these things and know when I need to communicate. The other thing it really provides is that, and again, like doing this activity with your team, I could totally see how you may be like, I'm not going to do this with my leadership. Like it feels crunchy. And I get that because we're talking about inspired leadership. But what I can tell you is, you're going to have to try it, because what you'll see is the significant benefit. My boss, when we did this together, if she comes into my office and she's in red and so am I, we have to say, we're both in red. And we can't talk. Like we have agreed, like we cannot talk when we're both in red. But even just the acknowledgement of it is helpful, because it both just shifts our energy a little bit to know that she's not in a good place and I'm not in a good place. Of course, that took some time to figure out, but it's really helpful. Okay. And I can tell too, like I jump on a call with her and I know she's in red and I'm in green. I know how to support her as well, because we've had those conversations. I highly encourage you guys to have these conversations at home too, if you have families or partners or roommates. It can be really helpful when I come home in some type of way and my partner is home in some type of way. We have 2 small children, so we need to quickly know where are we at and how we can support each other to keep it, to try and show up the best way we can. So it's such a great awareness building activity. So please continue to build on this and add to it. There are things I still learn too when I'm in these different spaces, how I communicate. Last but not least, at the top of the sheet, it says, when I feel stressed or upset, I'll take the following steps. Sometimes like identifying your coping skills are just really helpful, because if you remember when you were a child, you did a lot of emergency drills so that you went into muscle memory, right? So in my hood, we did earthquake drills. You guys, Midwest probably did tornado drills, but you did them so that when it happened, you just got into it. The same thing is with coping skills. You identify them and practice them when you're not feeling awful. They will become muscle memory when you need them. And you can see this if any of you have young kiddos and you start to teach this, you can see it happening in them, that it becomes muscle memory. There was a time I used to tell my 7-year-old, take a deep breath, slow down. Now, if her little brother bothers her, she'll stop in that moment and go, because it's just become muscle memory for her. And we can learn the same thing too, right? We're all still children, just grown up. So put three different types of coping skills, please. One is one that might take a little bit longer. So because what we want to do is make sure you guys don't always have to make time for coping skills. So one could be something that you have to take like 30 minutes for, right? Like a yoga class or whatever. You want to do one where you could do it in the moment. So maybe it's deep breathing. Maybe it's like your posture changes a little bit. Maybe it's a mantra you tell yourself. What's something you could do in the midst of chaos? And then the third one could try to include something that might be shorter, like 2 to 5 minutes. The more that we can build like a well-rounded coping strategy, it's really helpful, so that we don't always feel like we have to make time for coping, which means, most of us won't do that. So if we can kind of do it in small increments throughout the day, that's the best. Feel free to share those when you guys get a chance. I love this, Dan, this yellow, indecisive and not clear. That's like my red, where I feel like I'll say something and everybody around me will say, what? And I'm like, that made so much sense to me. But it's like when I'm not feeling well, I can't necessarily get my thoughts in order. It's really interesting. Yeah. Oh, I love tantrums. Yes, it's so good. Right? Sometimes you just like stomp your feet. Listening to music will change all my things. I love these. And everybody look at these, right? Because you could potentially try something that somebody else has done. So many different coping skills were introduced during COVID, for sure, that a lot of us had never tried on before. All right, so that's your wellness card. That's your awareness building activity. Please continue to add it. So now that we've increased your awareness of how we're showing up, we're going to really start to explore the concept of leadership by discussing the difference between leadership and management. So what is leadership versus management? Okay. I want you all to do, just to pause and reflect for a minute before we put you into your breakouts of what is management, not necessarily the role, right? Like if you're a manager versus you're an executive, just what is the difference of those concepts? Because in the workplace, it's important to have both, but they are very different. Okay. And so I want you guys to brainstorm your ideas of what leadership is not, and what's the difference between leadership and management. So let me stop for a second here and get a good count. All right. So we have, I'm going to send you guys into breakouts for about 5 to 10 minutes. We'll see how everybody's doing. And then we'll bring you back. Okay. So if one of you could be like a designated scriber, and that way you can pop in some of your stuff into the chat when you come back. Okay. What are the differences between management and leadership? What is leadership? What is leadership not? See you soon. Sorry, Robin. Needs people going.
Cute. Stop recording.
Oh yeah, I can pause it. I liked your shake. Can you tell me how to say your name so I don't butcher it? Yeah, you.
Thibaut.
Is that what it is, Thibaut? Okay.
It's like Team Thibaut.
Oh, Thibaut. Tim Thibaut. Oh my God. The fact that you have to even use that reference is like.
Yeah, I'm getting used to that.
Like Tim Thibaut. Welcome back. Welcome back. I hope that was enough time. Make sure when you guys come back, you mute yourselves. Just quick, like thumbs up or down. Was that enough time? Thumbs up. I got thumbs up. Okay, good. Excellent. I think we have 1 or 2 other activities I wanted to give you a little bit more time on. So you are officially an hour in. So before we debrief this quick breakout, does anybody need to quickly move and stretch? Excellent. Robin, do you want to give us 2 minutes to do it?
Yeah, if you're sitting down, everybody, let's stand up. As I mentioned earlier, a little bit of movement never hurts us, and y'all move every day, all day. So let's get up from wherever you're sitting, give your arms just a big shake out. And if you're in the kitchen and you're watching this, it's okay. You tell your team to do this too. Good. Give the head a little bit of a roll side to side. Good. Throw your hands up over your head. Take a big side body stretch. Head over the other side. And as we come back to center, again, just give those arms a shake out. Move around your legs. Maybe kick them out a little bit. If you're sitting, get some movement in your body. As we all know, movement is our gift and our bodies need to move. So if you're sitting still, take the time to get up, give yourself a little blood flow, a little oxygen into your body with that, and then come on back. Always feels better to move and then come back in because we're not sedentary people in this group. So let's refocus.
I don't know, it might just be that I'm old, but everything makes noise when I stretch. I don't know if you guys' body parts crack, but it's not the most attractive thing I've ever heard. The breakouts are a little tricky, just so you guys know. I moved a couple of you around because there were some that are multitasking for whatever, for I'm sure reasons that they're at work. And so some of them couldn't necessarily join breakouts, and I didn't want you guys to be alone in breakouts. So also Alexandra's dog is the only thing in the picture, and it's amazing right now. Not her herself. Okay. So for my designated scribers, can you guys pop in the chat or feel free to come off mute if you want? What was some of the conversation of what leadership is and the difference between leadership and management? Oh, nice. Oh, wow. You guys were already on it. Very nice. So management is a title. Someone's able to give direction, delegate. Yep. Problem solver. Managing is a bit like playing chess. Leadership is a trait, qualities that make people want to follow. Listen, empathetic, well-rounded, can inspire others. Yes. I hope everybody's taking a second to read these. Yes. Leadership is mentorship. Management is delegation, right? And you kind of have to be that as a leader too, right? You have to be able to delegate, but also can you delegate with also mentoring and coaching in every interaction you have? These are great. You guys keep them coming, please. Because you guys are in line with exactly what we have here, right? Which is that leaders shape the culture. Management consists of like controlling a group or a set of entities to accomplish a goal. Leadership refers to an individual's ability to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute towards organizational success. And influence and inspiration do separate leaders from managers, right? Your ability to be strategically inspirational is a quality or a skill that you have to learn. Brian, do you have your hand up? Because I see a hand, and if so, feel free. Or perhaps...
No, I don't. I have no idea what I did.
Okay, all good. That's really funny. I can lower your hand. There you go. Okay, thank you, Brian. Let me bring us back here. Okay, so now that we got like our brains brainstorming a little bit around management versus leadership, we're going to move into this part 2 where we're going to discuss leading with purpose, right, in detail. And we're going to talk about the why here, because leading with purpose channels enthusiasm into an intense energy and drive. Leaders with purpose stay focused and committed, which are obviously a very critically important perspective in an environment filled with obstacles and distractions. So let's say, you know, a global pandemic. So when you lead with purpose in any environment, there's this like radiation or this contagious energy and passion for the work. And your passion impacts every single person around you. And it inspires and motivates others. That's how you inspire and motivate people. It's how you lead people and mentor, is with this infectious energy. And those leaders have a reputation in their organization for attracting talent to their teams and inspiring achievement, sometimes beyond what you originally might even think for an employee. So we're going to talk about values and break them down a little bit more significantly. And part of this is one of your reflection pages, which I believe is page 5 in your activity packet. Let me see here. Yes. So we're going to reflect on that in a little bit. But for now, I just want to talk a little bit around fulfilling your purpose as a leader are guided by values you lead with every single day. And so you'll want to just think a little bit about what are my values, right? Because we use Brene Brown's framework here because living into our values is one of the 4 skill sets that make up the research-based style of leadership that's proven to be effective. And the findings from the research have been very clear. A courageous culture connects its values to specific behaviors so people know what is expected, encouraged, and rewarded within their team and organization. So in addition to setting really clear expectations, the process of identifying your values, team values, and having like shared language around how you want a culture to be defined is very rewarding. So what I'm saying here is you can identify your own value system and also do this as a group activity with your teams. Because when you can identify team values, right, you can actually operationalize those values, which drive productive decision-making. And when values aren't clear, employees can become paralyzed, right? Which is just as dangerous because we can then become very impulsive employees. So operationalized values drive what I think is the sweet spot of decision-making, which is thoughtful and decisive. And so let's go a little step further, because that was kind of like the macro explanation of values. But our values inform our thoughts, words, actions, and they're very important and powerful. And they kind of change too with different like dynamics that are introduced. But our values are important because they help us develop, they help us grow, they help us create a future and an experience that we want. And every individual and every organization is involved in making hundreds of decisions every day. And the decisions we make are a reflection of our values and beliefs. And they're always directed towards a specific purpose. So if that purpose is the satisfaction of individual or collective needs that have been identified, then you're going to see that these values are actually protective factors when there's either trauma in a community or when employees are feeling unsteady, because they can solve or contribute to interpersonal conflict if they're not introduced in a way where people understand what's expected of them in a culture. And so there's some powerful points to kind of point out here. Values help you react in difficult situations. And if you're kind of like right now thinking to yourself, what exactly are values, right? You can have so many different types. There can be enthusiasm, success, creativity, productivity, generosity, caring, teamwork, right? And your values are really born out of a pretty specific space, which we're going to talk about in a second. But with values helping you react in difficult situations, it's because they're the guiding principles for our behavior if we're intentional about them. They can help ensure you behave in a way that matches who you want to be at your core. People often react very quickly in situations, especially difficult ones, if they don't always take the time to think about what they're doing before they do it. And you can use your values to reflect on situations as well. So for example, if I'm going into a team meeting and I'm annoyed with my team and I don't come in with any intentional value, I could potentially come off as like not inspirational or motivating at all. And perhaps my team leaves that meeting feeling defeated and inadequate, which is not where I want them to be, because then they're not going to go do what I'm actually telling them to do in a productive and efficient way. But maybe I take a moment before I walk into that context and say, what are my values right now? They're accountability, compassion, understanding, and success. And so that's how I'm going to lead. And how am I going to lead with compassion and empathy while also communicating tough feedback, right? And it totally shifts the dynamic of when you walk in to that space. And values can kind of help you make those decisions. When we use our values to make decisions, we make a deliberate choice to focus on what's important to us. And when values are shared, they build internal cohesion in a group. So one of the first things we do with our teams when we bring somebody back new into our team is we talk about that. These are the values of our department and of our organization. This is what they look like in real time. So being innovative means we want you to bring your own experiences to the table, right? We want you to feel like if you have ideas, bring them to the table. And we start to really break down what our values mean. And we ask them the same thing. What are your values? Well, my values are teamwork. Okay, what does that mean to you? And all of a sudden we're starting to create cohesion and shared understanding of what values are. And then there's accountability on the other side. Hey, I know one of your values is empathy. And I'm not seeing you utilize that with the employees you're supervising. So let's talk about how we can utilize a value that's so important to you. Because what happens when you're in conflict with your value system, where you have internal values that you're not actually externally using, it produces negative emotions, resentment, anger, negativity, anxiety, depression. It's actually really, really unhelpful to our own mental health and wellness. And you can have individual values, right? So how you want to show up in your life or how you want to show up with specific relationships. Those can be sets of values like humility, right? Or love. Your relational values can be different with your family, openness, trust, caring, organizational values, strategic alliances, right? Financial growth, and you can have societal values as well. When we think about this perspective shift, if you guys have not really thought about how your value system is weaved into the workforce, we have to remember that many of us could have started with a foundation of what we do and how we do it, but not necessarily of the why we do it. Why do we have these values and why are they important to us? So as you continue the journey of identifying and developing purpose, use reflections of your own story to understand why your leadership is grounded in this set of values. Because this value system you have directly attributes to your behavior, was created from your upbringing, right? Your own resilience story. And so what drives you? What's your calling, your cause, your passion, your legacy? Why did it come to be that way? Right? What happened in your life? What was the adversity? What were the different wake-up calls that helped you configure your values, whatever they are? And that how does it continue to drive you? I think that when you're knowing that and coveting that and protecting that and nurturing that, a lot of things will fall into place. And that next step then is how you're understanding your employees' values and where those were developed as well. And if you're interested in taking like a one step further, there's a really interesting exercise that I did with my coach, which was basically, I'm stopping my screen so I can see some of your faces, which was basically write down in like 5 sentences, just try to describe your life basically in 5 bullet points. And what happens when you do that, if you're interested in doing this, and I've done this with my team, which has been extremely insightful, you pull out the 5 things that made you who you were, right? So not necessarily the big events, but that really like made up who you were. And then you were to assign the values that came out of that, right? So for example, some of my bullet points were being raised in a very liberal, small California town with parents who were protesters and very hippie. Significant part of who I am, right? Another bullet point, like at the very end of my bullet points, was my mom was being diagnosed with an illness. That's a significant part. What values then came out of these different spaces is significant, right? And they drive the way that you act in every relationship. So if this is an interesting activity, I highly recommend it. It can be really useful. So we're going to move into our breakout, which kind of feeds off these values. where I want you guys to start to think about what are your values that you associate with leadership. And as you guys talk about your values in these groups, and I want you to be really specific. If you say my value is compassion, what does that actually look like in your behavior? And I want you to also share, if you're comfortable, who was a leader or a mentor that's influenced you the most in your life? And what were the values that they embodied? Okay, so share a mentor, and at the same time, share some of your own values as a leader and why. It's really important. And then again, your designated scriber can jot down some of the values that you guys come up with. And we want you to share those out. And maybe if you could do a quick of like why that value is so important. Okay. All right, here we go. And if your breakouts look a little funny, I will move you around so nobody's in a room by themselves. We're going to spend a little bit more time here than we did with the management versus leadership, so you guys can share about mentorship. Okay, here we go. Pause. Record. Welcome back. For the groups that were 5, that may have not been enough time, but we'll see. You always know when they don't come back too quick. They're in full discussion. All right. How was that? Too much, too little time, or a good amount of time? Okay. I feel like for the groups that were a little bit more, that might have been a little harder. I'm sure you could have stayed in your groups for a longer time and continued to discuss. But we still have so much we want to share with you. So we want to make sure we keep it moving. All right, Sarah kicked us off. Why don't you guys either place in the chat or feel free to come off, share a little bit around the values you guys identified, why. Love that we're starting with vulnerability. It's such an interesting concept. I feel like that also gets wildly misunderstood a lot. And also just that when you're sharing in small groups is also just a very powerful tool, because when you can talk about shared values or shared stories or shared experiences, it also contributes to just overall wellness and healing. So thank you for engaging in that. All right, we're back, and you guys are going to put your value systems in. I can feel it. And your mentors. I hope you guys talked to your mentors. Here we go. Whoa. Overachievers. Love it, Taylor. Wow. Oh, this is so good. I'll read these for the ones that can watch this are like openness, being able to listen to others and their experiences and make adjustments. Ooh, I love that. A guiding mantra for me is don't make excuses, make adjustments. Love that. Patience, working with others takes a lot of time, energy and time. Amen. But also good payoff. Kindness, stepping out with kindness in order to make others feel comfortable and safe. Yes. And when you lead with kindness and share kindness, it's the same thing as sharing gratitude, which then in turn makes you feel better. That's like we're actually about to get into the power of gratitude. Ownership, admitting when you're wrong, when you need to pivot and showing that you are growing 100%. How many mistakes do we make a day? What we do in our team is celebrate failures and then we talk about the opportunities from that failure, and it normalizes mistakes and failures. Because like, at what point did anybody say we were supposed to be perfect? Except internal dialogue. Empathy, realizing that everyone is coming at different points in their life and working with them. Yes, there's this great video that talks about empathy, and it will like show headlines of somebody's experience. Like, this person's coming to work today after finding out that their mom was diagnosed with cancer. This person's coming to work today without being able to afford a meal in their belly. And you're like, oh my God, it just like resonates so much empathy. You realize you just don't know what people are carrying around with them at all moments. These are so, so great, you guys. Thank you so much. And I hope Robin's reading through these. I will read through these. Aww, Robin. Come on. Aw, Wesley. Make us emotional. And that's not even about me.
Amazing. Thanks, Gal.
I highly agree. When I first met Robin, I was like real in my feels. It was like the heart of COVID. I was really burned out. And she'd be like, just let it go. And I'm like, I love this person so much. I don't know what she learned in her life, but I need more of her in mine. She's taught me a lot. So these are so great. Thanks for putting in your mentor, Christian. And you guys, this exercise relates to your page 5 of your activity booklet. So that page is for a post-training reflection. So at some point, try to do it today or this evening because this stuff is fresh in your mind. That's a good time to take some time, go into number 5, write down the mentor that inspires you with the values. Talk about what the values are, how they're directly connected to your behavior in that number 2. And then in number 3, what guides you every single day, right? It changes the way you show up. It might not feel like it, but continue to practice it, and it does. It's a very powerful tool. Okay, I'm going to bring us back here. And thank you so much for sharing the values that you associate with leadership. And I want to just make some space now that we've done some heavier work around values and how they reflect in our leadership. We want to think about how to lead through the value of gratitude. And just so you guys know too, this is a 2-hour training. And if it were up to Robin and I, this training would be 6 hours so that we can really spend deep meat time in the content and breakouts. But the way that the world is, we like to move fast. So if there's concepts that you're learning that you're like, oh God, I could spend, an hour more on just that, let us know. And we can get you guys resources. We can talk through things. Of course, we'll come and do another training. So I'm going to pass it to Robin to take over.
Thank you. Welcome back to me. As I asked you before in those questions that we went over last time, I was kind of talking of what do you find gratitude for? And you could just think to yourself a little bit of, did you struggle with that? Of what is, number one, what is gratitude? And how do I find it in my day? But really finding that quality or skill to be thankful. To be thankful, to be ready to show up with appreciation and a return for kindness. And I think in your all's industry, it's not always the easiest thing, whether it is dealing with your team or whether it is dealing with the public or, each other for that much sake of, this high level stress. How do we break it down and look into things with a positive mind always? And that's hard. I know, I've been there. I experience it every single day still in my leadership roles. But have you ever focused on all the things that went right in your day and reflected on them? Oftentimes, we focus on all the things that went wrong. Maybe we had 2-hour ticket time and our wait is 2 hours, right? So what does that look like? Did we have an amazing experience with one single group that might have been in? So what does it look like when you focus on the good things rather than the bad things? And what is that? That's gratitude, right? So you look at all the things, and when we start to think positively, focus on the good rather than the bad, then that's gratitude. And as leaders, when you're able to focus on those things, you become better. You become more positive. Chances are you'll feel better too, because all of that is interconnected. It's not just a way of thinking, but it affects our entire self. And it might sound strange because the power of gratitude is one way not only to become a better person, but also to become a better leader. So start to lean into that and think of your day. Be really, as Casey would say, curious about how am I leaning in? How am I really showing up in a positive way and holding on to the things that are good rather than holding on to all the things that went a little sideways or were turned upside down. And we think about gratitude and what it does for us, scientifically proven how it impacts us physically, psychologically, and socially. So as we look into why the practice of gratitude is so important, we like to pick out some of these really strong points. If you think about your physical self, and just by being positive, you can create a stronger immune system. And your body might not feel so achy or stiff, as we talked about earlier. Somebody chatted that in, stiff body, lower the blood pressure. How many times do you see that point in your day, or maybe somebody on your team where that blood pressure level, it fires up, and the reactionary to that is even more fired up. So start to think about the physical effects of what gratitude and positivity can do to you. Sleep is a big thing. How many of us have really good sleep hygiene, especially in this industry with long hours or late nights or early mornings, depending on what shift you work, or maybe it's back-to-backs and things like that. So start to think about the physical effects that your body feels from whether I'm positive when I'm in the green or whether I'm negative and I'm in the red. Psychologically, higher positive emotion. That's a given. When we're thankful for what's surrounding us and we're feeling and seeing the good, we're definitely more positive. Exactly what Casey and I interacted with in the circle exercise of when I'm in the green, I'm very energetic. When I'm in the red, I can't get out of bed. So start to think about those things. Are those important to you? More alert, more alive. We have to be alert in our jobs, but really finding joy and optimism in what we do. And then the social aspect of just feeling more compassionate, more wholehearted, forgiving, maybe. If things go sideways, can we manage from a place of gratitude so we can be more forgiving, so we can be more understanding and lean in a positive way rather than lean into more negative reactionary ways, or just isolating ourselves, pulling ourselves out of everything. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to let somebody else deal with it. But really finding where that gratitude comes in. And while all of those are really good perks that anyone can enjoy, it's particularly, I can't speak today, useful for anyone in a leadership position. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves mentally and physically and coping with the demands of being a leader, everything is more difficult. So how can you allow yourself to find gratitude and to be intentional? How can you gain more engagement, more positive interactions while still acknowledging your own accomplishments? So when we lead from a gratitude, your team is the people that pick you up, the people that make you successful. The way you manage them is your choice. If we're showing up for them in a positive and energetic way, most likely they're going to perform for us in that way. They're going to show up just as energetic, as positive. And if they're not, how can we coach them and teach them to understand what we're learning in the ways that we lead? Because that's essentially what we are as leaders. We're not managing to just allow people, as you guys all said in the feedback of what's the difference between management and leadership. We're not managing people just to do their job. As leaders, we're leading people to grow in the workplace. So start to think about why the positivity is so important. Your success is driven by the people that you lead. So therefore, we want to make those people a result of your leadership, right? And this is exactly why. Thanks, Casey, for popping that up. Leaders are grateful their employees and themselves are 50% more successful. Why? Because you have fun. Y'all said it. I get silly, I get playful. When we're having fun on the job, it makes work so much better. But it's that cohesiveness of the team that you actually work together so much better. It blocks the toxic and negative emotions. So if there is one outstanding outlier that might not be having the best day, if we surround them with that positivity and that gratitude, we can bump them up, their spirits up, their positivity up, their energy level up. We're a little bit more stress resistant. So when things get a little sideways, whether it's in front of the house, back of the house with the team, we're a little more stress resistant. So we can deal with difficult situations in a more calm and more responsive, productive way. And most importantly, a higher sense of self-worth. That's always what we're looking for. When we talk about not just being a leader and not just being grateful, but also most importantly, self-care. What are we doing for our wellness, and how are we taking care of ourselves to show up in our best place for others? So these are just proven facts of why when leaders are grateful, your team is so much more successful. And when you think thankfulness and optimistic, others gravitate towards you. So when we think about how we're showing up, we want to really promote all of these things for our team to continue move forward in a way that works for everyone, not just one single person. So think about the difference of management and leadership. As you lead in a gratitude space with intention, which we'll get to later, you're more productive as a team, but more so as an individual. Casey, I'm turning it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Gratitude
is an interesting concept, I think, because it is definitely one of the more, I feel like, recent introduction of like a wellness tool, but I don't think we really realize the power of it in the workplace. So this is one definitely to be to engage in and try to figure out what that looks like for you. Gratitude, in my experience, is something I do want to practice every day. And I also have to kind of force myself to do it, even though it feels like an easy thing to do. I'll get caught up in the chaos of my morning routine with my kiddos and have to stop and make time, even if it's 10 seconds, to practice it, and it shifts. So it is something that might feel like you have to take some time to really process. This is another sort of reflection space of just kind of all of the content that we've just introduced around, like, what do you feel like your purpose as a leader is? What do you think purpose has to do with yours and employee wellness? What are the values you've identified and why? And are there values that conflict? Okay, so again, a really, really important reflection exercise. The last one we'll introduce is one we'll actually give you some time to do. So again, this is post-training reflection. Please try to go back in the next 24 hours and do this. And I recommend that you think about doing this with your team, right? Having your team members fill this out. What's your purpose as a leader in this organization? Again, doesn't have to be title in a leadership. So moving into sort of this last piece as we wrap up the last 13 minutes, you guys all got to watch, hopefully, the Simon Sinek video, Why Good Leaders Make You Feel Safe. What happens when they don't? What happens when they do? Why does that matter for your organization? What does it even mean to have a culture of wellness versus one leader declaring it, right? And what's your job in creating this culture? So I hope you guys were all able to take a look at that, because we're going, and if you haven't, try to go back and take a look, because we are going to dive a little bit deep into the concept that he's talking about, which is trust, right? Why do good leaders make you feel safe? What is even trust in the first place, right? This is what we know. This is for every single human, okay? In your gut, down in like your spinal column and in the deepest recesses of your mind lingers the most fundamental question of humanity. And it's the question the entire human body is asking every second of every day. And it drives human behavior. And it's, am I safe? No matter the age, role, or status, every human is unconsciously and repeatedly asking themselves this one question. And if leaders answer this one question, they really will win over the heads, the hearts, right, of every employee, resulting in better engagement, performance, and retention. And this question is the root of the most common questions that employees ask themselves every day, such as, do I have what it takes to do my job? Am I safe doing that, right? Do I have the knowledge to speak up? Do I have enough money to provide for my family? Do I have the confidence to ask for a promotion? Do I have the wisdom to lead my team effectively? Am I safe is the cornerstone of the 3 primary human needs, which is survival, basic needs, belonging, do I contribute, and become, do I have a purpose in this space? Alexandra has her hand raised, but I don't know if that's on purpose or by mistake. So Alexandra, if you have a thought, please go for it. Otherwise, if it's a mistake, let us know.
Sorry, I don't know what I hit. It's a mistake.
Okay, okay, all good. So here's sort of like your 5 spaces of trust. And just so you know, like there's a lot that goes underneath this too, right? There's what employees can do to feel like they make valuable contributions, right? Everything from like figuring out how to uniquely contribute in their role, to understanding like what the learning process is, and being able to receive feedback and experiment in their role. So there's a lot that employees are responsible for as well in trust. But from a leader perspective, some of the tools that I would recommend to help facilitate trust is making trust an explicit priority by talking about it. So talk about the importance of creating trust at work, connecting it to a higher purpose of, promoting greater organizational innovation, team engagement, a sense of inclusion, right? Talk about it. You can't just assume through your actions that people will feel it all the time. So talking about it makes it really explicitly known. Bless you, Robin. Model that behavior you want to see, right? And stage it by showing empathy in the workplace. Another really helpful tool to facilitate trust is facilitate everyone speaking up, right? Show genuine curiosity around people telling the truth, right? Want the honest truth. Be open-minded and compassionate when someone is brave enough to challenge the status quo. Establish those norms for failure to be handled is really helpful. Don't punish experimentation and reasonable risk-taking, but can you encourage learning from failure and disappointment and openly share your own mistakes? Creating a space for new ideas, even if they're really wild, also helps generate trust as well. And you can do these in team meetings as well. And then the last tool I'll just introduce is just that embracing productive conflict. I think a lot of people look at conflict as a negative thing, but promoting dialogue and productive debate and working to resolve conflict productively can actually set the stage for incremental change by establishing team expectations that contribute to trust through conflict resolution. Again, some of these things are like all other trainings on their own, but how will your team members communicate their concerns and about a process that's not working, right? Can you have that conversation topic in a team meeting? How can reservations be shared with colleagues in a respectful way? Have you set those expectations in those values? If there's 2 team members that have conflict, what are our values when we're bringing it up to each other, right? What are the norms for managing conflict when people have different perspectives? Just remembering that conversation is the foundation of your organization's culture, right? As a single activity that touches every aspect of your organization, from recruitment, operations and strategy to productivity, service, and whatever else, it's critical to the success of your priorities. So the quality of that conversation of you and your organization has the power to accelerate or undermine everything you do, right? And so it's a really, really powerful, and what happens when distrust is created, right? That what's important to me is not safe with this person or in this situation. and it can lead to these negative emotions. Thank you. Of blaming, complaining, right? And these are not employees we really want to be around, but part of that ownership is on us. So moving from there, that was a lot of content I just talked about, but I want to go back to the beginning as we begin to wrap this training and think about how you'll lead with intention, starting with purpose and really executing through gratitude and mindfulness. And just so you know, for homework assignment, if you're curious on that trust piece, empathetic leadership is one of the most powerful tools to build trust as well. Again, that's part of our longer day training. But if you're interested, empathetic leadership is a great tool. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about mindfulness, and then I'm gonna hand it to Robin to talk about it in the workplace, and then we're gonna wrap up since we're getting pretty close to one here. But mindfulness helps leaders and employees reflect effectively, focus sharply on a task at hand, and master peak levels of stress. And it can help us recharge quickly. On an organizational level, mindfulness actually reduces sick days, increases trust in leadership, and boosts employee engagement. The research around mindfulness is out of this world. I highly recommend this be something you look further into. But it really describes the state of being present in the moment, leaving judgment out of the context, but it's allowing one to pause in a constant inflow of stimuli and consciously deciding to act rather than react, which is an ingrained behavior that we have to kind of shift. So again, micro changes. But again, 3 proven benefits: helps people stay calm and open-minded, helps with cognitive ability and agility, and it helps us focus and clarity of thinking, all things that you should want as a leader for you and your employees. All right, Robin, take us home here.
Awesome. All right. So as we think about mindfulness, how are we staying mindful in our space? And you can look at this slide and you can read it, but really thinking to yourself, mindfulness is being present in the moment with no judgment and no interruptions. How can we do that when there's mass chaos going on around us? It's to pause. And a lot of you said it earlier in the chat, is to breathe. Breathing is the most important way that we can become mindful, that we can reset our central nervous system, that we can regulate our bodies. So being able to be mindful and take time to step back in a chaotic moment and really be in tune with yourself, the way you feel, the way you're reacting, all of that stuff. And you can do it with just breathing. Taking some deep breaths. We never recharge ourselves, and I like to associate it to our cell phones. These batteries hit red, and that's the most important thing in our moment, is to plug that phone back in and get it back into the green. We as humans operate in red every single day, and we never recharge. We never plug ourselves back in. And the way to do that, most effective way that you don't need to seek out, is to regulate your breath. So think about breath work, get curious about it. Once again, like Casey said, there's so much that we can go more into. That's something that I train on the daily is breath work. But think about it, be curious. Take a few deep breaths. Focus on your inhales and exhales and the way it makes your body feel and your mind feel, because it will create that mindfulness that you need. And then more importantly, what's your transition? How are you being mindful from the home space to the workspace, or the workspace to the home space? Create a routine to unwind in the transition and unwind before you disconnect. Sleep is the most important way to recharge and process all the information that we receive on a daily basis. That what is the way that we're going to be most productive in our sleep process? What is our sleep hygiene? So be really mindful of in the workplace and at home, and the transition in between, because it's super important.
Thank you so much, Robin. Challenge for you guys is to figure out what you need to take the space to do these recaps and reflections. They're really, really important, and they help take whatever knowledge that you felt like really resonated with you today. It helps you retain that when you can take it and actually sort of reiterate it, whether it be writing or talking out. So please take the moments that you need in the next 24 hours, even if it's quick because you feel like you don't have time, of writing what will you do to start to foster trust that maybe you haven't done yet? How can you challenge yourself to start something new, right? And it can be as simple as before you start a meeting with somebody, you take the first 2 minutes to just see how they're doing or ask how their day's been, right? And how will you dose it throughout the day? So it means like, how will you build trust throughout the day? Will you show moments of gratitude or appreciation? Ask how things are going, right? Thinking about how you encourage the tools that you've learned today in the workplace. How are you going to talk about it? What does it look like to find time to reset? Before every team meeting and town hall we have with our organization, of course, for a mental health organization, so it's a little bit different, but we start with deep breathing or intention setting so that we make time for those pauses as well. And what's one thing that you're taking with you today? We're going to leave you on a very inspirational note, or I think it is, but it's basically the Martin Luther King's beloved community model. And it's basically that your values and your actions and your words impact your direct relationships, who then affect their relationships to really forge a community, which does have implications for society. Okay, many changes in our society don't come from top down. They really come from an individual human's infectious energy and behavior and love. And so we encourage you guys to think about that perspective as leaders. Last but not least, before you guys leave, I am popping in a survey into the chat, and we would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. And we just want to tell you how much it was such a pleasure for Robin and I to be here with you guys in this virtual space together. The 2 hours always flies by for Robin and I. Honestly, I think we would do this for like, we could retreat to the West Coast and do it for everybody if you want over 2 days. And Robin's trained in yoga, so she could do even like a yoga section. Anyway, just food for thought, Abby. Thank you guys so much for your participation and engagement. You deserve to feel good and feel well. And so holler if you need anything. Robin, feel free to pop your email in the chat. I will also, if you guys need anything. Otherwise, have a beautiful day, and hopefully we'll get to see you guys soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Casey and Robin. And thank you everyone for attending and your amazing engagement throughout and thoughtful comments. So thank you. Thank you. This is only just the beginning of the conversations, and these are such important topics for us to continue to talk and reflect on. So thank you. Thank you.